99.9% of issues for me come back to the very start. What position is the player in when the ball comes out of the hand? Can they move easily forward and back? Can they get offside? Can they get leg side? Are they in a position that enables them to move quickly, to be stable and balanced when they actually hit the ball? At ball release, that the head is generally, if you did a straight line from the head, it would sort of run down through your hands and down through your base, through your feet. And if your head is somewhere over your feet, it's so much easier then for the player to move up and down the wicket. I often talk about the finishing line of the ball. So it's not where the ball starts, mid-crease or wide of the crease. Let it do its thing, track it, and then try to move to the finishing line of the ball. So you'll be nice and still, you'll be in the right position, and then you can present a good bat face of the ball. You're looking, if you're coming down the wicket, you want a fast feet. So you need your head and front shoulder dipped slightly forward to get the hands up, and you want a little bit more weight going forward and over the front foot.
Cricket Love Stories with me, Neel Khagram, again on the channel. We're joined by Toby Radford. Toby, how's it all going?
Nice to see you, mate. Yeah, been good. Been busy this summer, working with a lot of sort of county players, a lot of one-to-one batting sessions. So yeah, been good. And then seeing how the guys go.
Yeah, you've also got a role at Wellington as well. Do you want to run us through that?
Yeah, with the batting coach with the Wellington Firebirds in New Zealand, one of their top sides, where Devon Conway and Tom Blundell play. So it's a good team. I've been out there for the last couple of weeks doing some work with some of their batters, and I'm due back there in a few weeks' time. So yeah, but lovely part of the world, New Zealand, good people, and clearly good cricket nation as well. So it was a bit of a no-brainer really to take the opportunity to go out.
You've also got your new book. You've been busy. Getting to Grips is the title. We're going to run through a few of the key points in this chat and hopefully give some batting tips for young players or even experienced players as well, hopefully improve their technique. But how did that book journey writing come about?
It didn't actually start as a book. It started when I was back working with the West Indies team, and in between series, the players would go back to their Caribbean islands. I'd come back to the colder Cardiff, and they would then send footage across for me to sort of look at. And I started analysing the footage, sending images back, drawings on their footage, and sort of, yes, doing this well, could work on these areas. And I think the players found that quite a positive experience for them to help them work on their game. So during the pandemic, when people couldn't get to their coaches, I then started to put those type of images online to help coaches, to help players. And then the natural progression for that was in the last year or two to turn it into a book. I thought it'd be nice that all my Instagram posts, all the stuff I talked about on technique, that I could make it available in a book. So, I then started writing stuff around it. So it's pretty thematic, going from your guards, your setups, playing spin, playing swing, all the different parts of batting, to be honest. But using the visual sort of imagery, which hopefully simplifies it and simplifies technique for people.
Yeah, the way you've set out the chapters, you obviously start with the setup, then position at ball release, then pre-delivery trigger, before actually delving into stance and grip, etc. Yeah. Is that what you see as the order of importance for a batter's technique? And also, I just want to pick up on a little quote that really stood out for me. You said in the setup section, the shots themselves are not difficult to play, but they are if players are unable to move quickly into the appropriate balanced position to play them. Just want to go a bit deeper into that?
Yeah, just I spend hours most days working with all levels of batters, and you find that the common issue with players is that the problem may be in particular shots, but it comes because they're not particularly, the player isn't well balanced when the ball is released, and because they're not well balanced, they can't then be well balanced when they hit the ball. And also, if you're not well balanced, your decision making is affected. So 99.9% of issues for me come back to the very start. What position is the player in when the ball comes out of the hand? Can they move easily forward and back? Can they get offside? Can they get leg side? Are they in a position that enables them to move quickly, to be stable and balanced when they actually hit the ball? And if you get those things right, the cut, the drive, the pull, they're not difficult to play, but they are. as I said in the book, if you're not in a balanced position to play them.
Yeah, we talked about this next question in our previous videos, but worth covering again because you do cover it in your book quite a bit about the head position at ball release for a batter, either right or left-hander. Again, do you just give some of your technical tips on that and this kind of stuff you've written in the book?
Yeah, I mean, it's come about from sort of working with and playing against some of the world's best, you know, being in a net next door to Babar Azam and watching him close at hand, who I think is probably pound for pound the best player in the world, really. And it's this idea that at ball release, that the head is generally, if you did a straight line from the head, it would sort of run down through your hands and down through your base, through your feet. And if your head is somewhere over your feet, it's so much easier then for the player to move up and down the wicket. The more that the head gets outside the line of the feet, the more that you tend to fall across the wicket. You know, your head goes across to the covers, your front foot lands and blocks you off, and you end up playing around the front pad. So ideally, we want to be moving up and down the wicket. And to enable you to do that, the head wants to be over the top of the feet because that's the easiest way to move up and down the track.
Do you believe that batters who have such core fundamentals can succeed in all formats of cricket? You write a lot about the backswing and playing from a stable base, common skills a lot of people often associate with short form cricket. But is it just more to do with all formats?
Yeah, I'm very much of the belief that the best players are the best players, and if you have those good fundamentals in place, you know, if you have the chassis of the car is solid, then you can put the nice glossy paintwork on afterwards. And you know, if you look at cricket, if you've got good balance and your hands are in a nice position, your head is still, and you play from a stable base, then all the other stuff, the funky stuff that you want in T20s and 50 over cricket, you know, you can just add that on. The risk taking. You know, a ball that you in red ball cricket that you might defend, suddenly you take that bit of a risk in the white ball format. But you can't add that on if you haven't got those good basics in place in the first place.
100 cricket's currently going on, IPL, etc. Massive in our game. You've got a big section on power hitting, base, balance, and bat speed. Can you talk through that? Some of your technical tips and advice maybe for a young player who is struggling in that?
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate enough in my early days working with the West Indies that Marlon Samuels was still around and probably at the top of his game. And Marlon was someone who helped win 2 World Cups for the West Indies. You know, fine player. And the bigger the game, the better Marlon played. And he was one of the first, I think, to introduce this idea that, you know, when you're looking to score 360 around the ground, he would position his back foot back to the offside. He'd open up the front side of his body. So what he was basically doing was if the ball was wide of off stump, by taking his back foot back to the offside, he was close and he could reach anything wide of off stump. If the ball came straight, because he'd opened up the front foot, he could access and hit straight down the ground. And obviously, again, because the front foot is open, anything angling into the leg side, he could pick it up on the leg side. So the margin for error for a bowler was very small. And you could, with Marlon, you could be hit offside back over the top or on the leg side. And he often did this at the end of the game. He was one of the first I saw to do it. And now, you know, you see it sort of 10 a penny, really, whether it's the 100 or IPL or whatever. The players set that back foot deep into the offside, open up the front leg, and then become much easier for them to hit all around the ground.
What common mistakes do you feel maybe if like young players face when it comes to power hitting? They want to emulate the stars, the Butlers, Babar Azams, Rohit Sharmas, Virat Kohlis, etc. But perhaps what common mistakes do you see as a coach?
Yeah, I mean, trying to hit the ball too hard. And in trying to hit the ball too hard, the head is moving at contact. They're not stable when they want to swing, when they swing the bat down. Their body weight might be coming up or backwards, where you actually want your weight and your momentum going through a shot. They don't keep the bat on the line of the ball for long enough, so the hands almost flick off the line of the ball rather than stay on the line of the ball. You know, you want to. It's like any ball sport, striking sport. You want to keep the blade on the line of the ball for as long as possible, really, to get, you know, maximize getting that in the middle of the bat and then, you know, see the ball sail. But they'd be some of the key things that you'd see.
Huge focus in England, especially, is about playing swing and seam bowling. Again, do you want to delve into some of the technical advice you outline in the book? A lot about, is it just keeping the head forward, ensuring your bat swing is in the correct position, etc.?
Yeah, a lot of it is playing swing is waiting and allowing the ball to swing. So let the ball do its swing first and then play as late as possible. Players who tend to have problems with the swing, they go at the starting line of the ball, and then by the time they go at the ball, the ball's changed direction, actually ends up in a different place. So if you want to play swing well, yes, keep your head forward, but keep it within the line of the stumps and allow the ball to either swing out and then you meet it, or if it swings into you, then you meet it. But you want your head where the ball finishes. I often talk about the finishing line of the ball. So it's not where the ball starts, mid crease or wide of the crease. Let it do its thing, track it, and then try to move to the finishing line of the ball. So you'll be nice and still, you'll be in the right position, and then you can present a good bat face at the ball.
A lot of common mistakes, maybe like for a left-hander, they often play around their pad, trapped LBW against that right-hander. I'm a lefty, so I'm thinking like that. Again, what kind of technical tips would you give them overcoming those difficulties facing swing or seam?
Yeah, well, I touched there about in the book about alignments. So guard is important and how you line up at ball release. So a lot of left-handers at the top end of the game now, if they're facing a right arm, if you're facing Jimmy Anderson, he has the ability to swing the ball back in late. To try to line up so the feet, the hips, and the shoulders are lining up with Jimmy's hand, or back at, in the direction of where the ball is coming from, so that you're not over sideways. You're open enough that if the ball does swing in, you can access the ball. And the other thing is, from over the wicket, is not to have the head too far across, because if you start getting the head to off stump when the ball's coming from over the wicket, suddenly again, if it swings back in, balls that would be hitting middle stump, you're now playing across the line into too square on the leg side. So generally head in and around middle, but all the alignment, feet, hips, and shoulders back towards the bowler's hand.
Again, we've talked about this bit in our previous videos, but where are you on the trigger movement for a batter?
Yeah, very much a personal thing, but I do believe a trigger's got to work for you. And a lot of players at the top end of the game have a trigger because just having their feet have some kind of movement just gets them going. And if you're playing fast bowling, you need to be into position quickly forward, quickly back. And to do that, having that little movement before obviously helps them. The triggers that tend to work well are ones that are done slightly earlier, so you get the movement out of the way early. And obviously, the smaller the movement, the better, because there's less that can go wrong. So if you're moving a little bit late, or it's a big movement, then what you'll tend to find is the head is still moving as the ball's coming out of the hand. Judgment isn't as good, and it's more difficult then to be still and stable when you actually hit the ball. So small is best, early is best to help you get into position to play the shot.
Moving on to spin, when you talk about it in your book, you open by saying fast and nimble footwork are attributes held by all good players of spin bowling. Can you just go a bit deeper into some of that advice?
Yeah, I mean, look, picking length is important. Picking length is really important to get up and down the wicket. And what you're trying to do against good spin is you're trying to nullify the spin. So you're either trying to get as close as possible if you're coming down the wicket, or if you're on a turning pitch, you're trying to get back and away from the ball so that you can give yourself room to be able to adapt and adjust to that spin. And you think back over the years, people like Michael Clarke, Australia, fantastic player of spin. Joe Root, wonderful player of spin. And he's got a lovely mix, I think, fast footwork, sweeps particularly well, but always seems to pick the right ball to sweep. Something I often mention to players I work with is, if you're going to sweep and play cross bat shots against the spin, start to work out the area that you're comfortable doing it. So almost like the box you need the ball to land in. And if you're going to premeditate, right, it's got to be in my box. And if it's not in my box, plan B, safe option, and wait for it and then commit to it when it lands in the place that you really want it to be. But yeah, coming back to Root, he's a wonderful player of spin and does that whether it's in England or on the turning pitches in Sri Lanka or wherever he tends to go.
Where do you stand in terms of picking it out of the hand, whether it be a finger spinner, a wrist spinner? Does it differ? Depend on each bowler, or do you think every batter should pick it out the hand first?
Look, the earlier you can pick it, the easier it is. I mean, if you know from the hand which way the ball's spinning, then you can just play with the spin. It becomes easy. But when you're facing, your Rashid Khans and these world-class spinners who bowl very quickly and can spin it both ways, it becomes tough. Some don't pick it from the hand; they just can't pick it. and they try and pick the seam in midair, and they can actually see which way the seam's going to know whether it's coming in or going away. And others pick it off the pitch. But obviously, the later you're picking it, the less time you've got to adjust your shot. So those who pick it from the hand, from the wrist, from the shoulder dip, obviously at an advantage because you've got more time to set up which way they want to play their shot. If you're picking it off the wicket, it can be done. I've seen many good players do it, but it is trickier, and you've got less time to get into position to play.
And the advice you give in terms of head position, is that similar to when facing a quip?
The principles are very much the same. Keep your head within the line of the stumps. Try to keep your head slightly forward. You're looking, if you're coming down the wicket, you want a fast feet. So you need your head and front shoulder dipped slightly forward to get the hands up. And you want a little bit more weight going forward and over the front foot. If it's then short, you push back. So you can push back to play that punch into the offside, or push back to clip it into the leg side. So your back foot shots tend to come having pushed off the front foot and then transferring your weight onto the back foot to play it. Is
there like a get out of jail shot? A lot of commentators say if a batter can't pick it, they just play the sweep. Well, no, if you hear that as a coach, what's your response?
No, I think to play the sweep is a risky shot. I mean, those who play it well get a lot of runs, and you tend to play the sweep more on length than on line. So if it's on that length, as I said, then you play it well and you keep your head forward, then you can control it. But it's a shot. I think for me, the get out of jail shot, if you're not picking it, is to try to get the bat in front of the pad and to play straight. And it was interesting. Last winter, I was with the England under-19s, and we had a tour of Sri Lanka. We played in Colombo with 5 one-dayers. There wasn't a blade of grass in Sri Lanka. Hot, good spinners. I mean, they're under-19 spinners, as you can imagine. Very good bowlers. And some balls would skid. Other balls would just suddenly fizz, and it was really tough. A couple of things came out of the trip. One was we were definitely better when we got the bat in front of the pad and played the straight line. So if it skidded on and got an inside edge, you probably got one to square leg anyway. And if it turned, you could just hold the line and make sure you don't nick it. So if it's really skidding or gripping, that was definitely the safest option. The other thing that really came out of the trip was, as a player, you've got to know what your method is. We had James Rue, who's done really well for Somerset this year. He's a fine young player. He's, I think, got 100 yesterday in the Royal London. And his method was sweeps, slog sweeps, reverse sweeps. But he obviously then would pick the right ball. And he was very good at sweeping, a bit like Joe Root, but he seemed to know, and he knew when to play it. Conversely to that, we then had Will Luxton from Yorkshire, another fine batter, whose method was much more hit long off, hit long on, play straight, occasionally would play a slog sweep. So you had 2 guys, one who played very much square the wicket, the other one who played up and down the wicket, and both of them played really well, match-defining, match-winning innings. And it just showed that, you could play either way, but you've got to know what your go-to method is, and that your shot selection is good. And both of them did that, and they won us matches out there, which was brilliant.
Where are you on the kind of trick shots, kind of the scoops, etc.? Even a slog sweep, I'll put that in that bracket. Talk about fundamentals, technical fundamentals in this book. Are all those tricks just an extension of good shots in a way?
I think they are. You have your basic, as I say, you have your chassis of the car first, and then you put the alloys on later, and you do the funky stuff. And if you're going to be playing in these other formats, of course, you want to have shots where you can get across and scoop it, over fine leg or over the bowl, that you can play your reverses and you know how to play them. And the only way you do that is practice. I mean, I could think back 20 years ago when Owen Morgan first came to Middlesex as a youngster, and he was often in the nets doing his little scoops over each shoulder. And he was ahead of the game then, 20 years ago. He was ahead of the game. But he spent a lot of time practicing his reverses. So when he went out in the middle, and he was one of the first to play a lot of those shots, he wasn't just suddenly trying it at Lord's in a T20. He had been spending hours working on that in Ireland and when he first came over to Middlesex. So it's practice. And I think for young players, get the confidence of it, practice these shots, know where you need the ball to pitch when you're going to play those shots. So when you go out into the middle, you're not suddenly, under pressure trying to come up with it there. Right, you're confident, you're calm. We've done this. I've done this 1,000 times in practice, and I know if the ball is in that area, I can reverse sweep that area. If it's in this area, I know I can hit it over deep mid-wicket, because that's what the experienced players do. They've done it so many times. It's almost autopilot in their head,
You have a little section in the book about drills, which a batter can practice for spin bowling. Do you just want to run through some of the things that you've written on that subject? as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of drills for spin. I mean, a good one is to play late and to manipulate the face of the bat. So not moving at all, no foot movement, setting up some cones for your gaps and fielders, and even color coding them and having different color balls. So the idea being you throw balls that are straight or have them thrown at you, back of a length straight, and all you're doing as a batter, no foot movement, but you're letting the ball come in and you're just working it, the blue ball maybe into the blue cones in square leg, then you open the face the other way, you get it into extra cover. So what you're learning is control of the bat face. And then when you've got that without foot movement, you then suddenly add the foot movement. Suddenly the game seems so easy because you've got this playing late and manipulating the bat face, but with good feet that get you either close to the ball or, as we said, a little bit off the ball to enable you to maneuver the ball into the gaps that you want.
But Toby, it's been a fascinating chat. It's a fantastic book as well. We'll put all the links in the description below of this video for whoever does want to purchase it, they can. But yeah, for a young player, they've got the technical tools from your book. Just to end on, how do you advise them to then go out and just practice and put this into practice and then take the results into the middle?
I hope that the idea of the book was really to help players and coaches keep it simple, simplifying batting. And I think because it's quite a visual book, the feedback I've had is that people are suddenly, God, it makes sense just by seeing some of these diagrams and a few notes around it, that complex techniques, technical stuff can be made very simple. And I believe the game is simple. And, my message with players day in, day out is as I come back to the thing, root cause, simplify it, balance, alignment, and then you can get into lovely positions to play the shot. The game isn't that complicated. We don't want to make it complicated. Simple and fun and hopefully effective.
Perfect, Toby. Getting to Grips, the book, link in the description below of this video. But yeah, Toby, all the best for the weeks and months ahead. So thank you again.
Thanks very much, and all the best to you and to your listeners. Thanks, Neel.
Neel Khagram, Cricket Life Stories, Toby Radford. Thank you.